Okay, so in this training, I'm going to talk to you about how to maximize your 8A certification, right? You can do what I'm about to suggest in less than a week. So moving this forward and increasing your chances of maximizing your 8A certification. I'm not going to provide you a silver bullet. I'm not going to give you a magic pill or give you the winning numbers for the next big Powerball, billion-dollar Powerball, right? Life doesn't work that way. Life doesn't just throw cash at you. You get an 8A certification. Woo, it's a golden ticket. And that's the thing to keep in mind. It's a golden ticket for the ride. You can get on the ride. It's not a bag full of gold. And so success as an 8A small business, as a certified 8A small business, it requires that you hire great people. It requires that you go out and attract long-term customers. Success requires the knowledge and skills and having a process that you can repeat over and over again that will lead to you achieving the goals you set for yourself. That's how you have success in the 8A program. You're the superhero of your company. And I really want to kind of drive this home. But when I say superhero, I don't just mean any superhero. I'm really saying that I'd like you to see yourself as Batman, not Superman, right? Or Batgirl, not Supergirl. Superman didn't have to work for any of his powers, right? He just flew from one planet to another. And all of a sudden he had all these magical powers that just made him the greatest being on earth kind of thing, or the strongest. And it's basically the equivalent of some, adult wrestler in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation kind of thing, going and joining preschool. And all the people around are like, oh my gosh, you're so great. It's like, yeah, he's an adult wrestler who's like 7 feet tall among a bunch of 3 feet year old kids or 3 feet tall kids, right? It's not hard to see him huge and like he's got superhuman strength. But Batman is a whole different thing, right? Batman, well, admittedly, Batman's true superpower is that he's rich, right? But Batman, underneath all of the equipment and all that stuff, is just a person like you and me. And the idea is that he had to focus on building the tools, developing the knowledge and the skills to be able to do the job that he wanted to do. Now, sometimes his methods are questionable, but that's separate. What I'm saying is he's just a person like each of us. And we want to be that kind of superhero who realizes that we need to build the tools and the skills around us to be able to have the success. And that's what we're going to focus on in this lesson. That's what I'm excited about driving forward. The most basic thing an 8A firm can do to maximize their value and to maximize the certification that you have. That's the lesson I'm going to teach you today. It's the 10 or 20% effort that's going to deliver 80% of your marketing visibility, your marketing value, where buyers find you. A big, huge portion of your 8A certification's value to your company is that it attracts buyers. It's not just that you go out and there's an acquisition path that's a little bit easier, but it also attracts buyers who know that already. So they need to be able to find you, and that's what we're going to talk about today. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonnell. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to have you here for our daily live federal sales training, where we teach tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years as a small business owner in the federal market. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow the process A to Z, we're going to have predictable, repeatable success. And that's what I want for you. And I know that's what you want for yourself. Before we get started, do me a favor. Help me, help buyers, help the others in the community. Remember who you are. Put your company name, if you haven't done so already, into the chat. Put 2 or 3 keywords that describe your core competency, right? Don't have a whole lot of words. Just really narrow down on that so it makes it easy for us to remember, Bain Group, SharePoint, as an example. And I promise next week I'm going to start using other examples too. Do me a favor. Finally, let me know where you're joining us from. The GovCon Chamber of Commerce has members from Guam to the U.S. Virgin Islands and every single state in between. I want to know where you're from. And really, I think a lot of other people in the chat, the community, would like to find others who are in their area. All right, we're going to be diving into a lot. Let me share my screen. I just got to make sure I got this all lined up. When I share my screen, by the way, I'm pretty much not going to be able to see the chat, but if things make sense as we go along, if you have aha moments, put that into the chat. Anything in the chat that's engaging on it is great. Okay, I think I'm sharing my screen and I'll find out in a couple of seconds, so I'm just going to get started. But the first thing I want you to understand as you're thinking about maximizing your 8A certification is you have to understand who are the federal buyers that are out there. And there are a ton of them. This is not a small pool of people. And so the first thing I just wanted to point out is that acquisition, when we think about it, isn't just a contracting officer. It cuts across all areas of an agency that are executing a contract. And so here at the top, you can see it's people who are focused on the ideation or planning and requirements. The folks on the financial side, cost estimating and budgeting, or the delivery side on the right. Right down here in the middle, you can see that there's three main groups that are outside the traditional acquisition force of a contracting officer, contract specialist, that are responsible. And this, by the way, this information is coming from a DoD document. They really focus on trying to teach acquisition to the industry out there. But they talk about there's developing requirements, there's a whole bunch of people around that, then developing the budget, and then managing that execution on there. And all of those people are potentially engaged in market research one way or another. And that's what we're going to talk about. Here on this slide, what I'm trying to communicate to you is just how many people are out there. This is an old document. This is from 2018. I have a 2021 version of this. And currently the number down here, 157, is actually 185,000 people in the acquisition career field within DoD alone. That's the Department of Defense, right? This does not include everybody at all the other agencies. And I think it would be fair to say that all of the other agencies, civilian agencies, would equal at least what DoD has. And so you're talking about, 300,000 to 400,000 people who are in the acquisition career field across all these different sectors. And so the one thing I wanted to point out with this red box on the right is that you can't reach them all. You never will be able to reach them all. You barely will be able to reach a fraction of 1%. And so what you want to be doing to increase or maximize your 8A certification's value to your company is make sure when they want to find you, they can, that these 100 or 200,000 people, that they can find you, right? Not all of them are going to find you, but if you're in the facilities engineering, there's 12,000 people there. You're not even going to be able to reach the 12,000. Let's talk about the 7 ways federal buyers find sellers like you. This is a traditional step-by-step approach to how a buyer might try to find a small business like you, an 8A small business, right? The first thing they do is they look at their current incumbents, current companies doing work with their agency. If they're doing market research, they try to see if any of those folks can fit the need, if they can reach out and have them satisfy the marketing research needs. If they can't find it within that pool, they just continuously move forward. Then they're looking at previous incumbents. Who was working for us last year but isn't working for us this year? They were reliable. We liked them. We paid them. So they might be good for us to do market research with. The next group are recent responders to request for proposals, RFP, or request for quotes, right? So if you have sent in a response to an RFP or an RFQ, then they have you in a list. And these are the people, people who are in the third category here. They're attractive because the government knows that they are responding to RFPs and RFQs. They're going to go further into a broader pool of companies, but those broader pools, they don't really know if they're going to respond. This group in number 3, they know that they respond and they can look at some of the material if they want. Going with that, number 4 is talking about people who have responded to sources sought notifications or requests for information. So these notifications that go out, if you're responding to RFIs, you're going to be in a list. They're going to track who's responded to the last RFI they sent out, or the last several, maybe the last over several years, whatever it is. They've got a list of everybody who responds. They have to track that. And so part of market research, they might look there at number 4. And this is why I'm saying you absolutely should be responding to every sources sought that fits within your company's core competency, that is at your target agency or target department. So if you're doing work at FAA, you could be responding to Department of Transportation RFIs as well. So throughout the other agencies in there. But that's a really important one because it lets them know that these companies are at least interested enough in working with my agency that they have sent a response in to my sources sought notice or my request for information notice. The next group that they're looking at is this personal list of vendors. And I just called it that. What you can really think about it is if you send a capability statement into a contracting officer or to small business specialist, whoever might be responsible for doing market research, well, they just put that into their hard drive. They might put it into a spreadsheet and say, hey, I got this from Neil. And that's a place where they look before they even go out to more advanced tools, which I'll talk about in 6 and 7. But so you want to make sure that if you've got an agency you're trying to sell to, that everybody who could possibly fit into your world, that the small business professionals, the contracting officers who actually buy what you sell, making sure that they're aware of who your company is, right? Don't just spam them. Make sure you actually are reaching out, having an intro, sending them a capability statement, but they build their own list. And so before they reach out to another tool, they'll just look and say, well, do I have enough people here that I might be able to get bids, or at least might be able to ask them to come in and talk to the program office about their needs. The next way buyers find sellers, and this is where they begin to go outside their own little world, I don't mean little, but outside their own cubicle, let's say, is now they start looking at an agency portal. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. But basically, this is a supplier portal of companies like yours that have registered to say they're interested in working with this organization, like NavAir has one. So you might register with NavAir in the Navy. You might register with NavAir saying, I'm interested in working with your agency. And so if somebody is doing market research or a buyer is trying to find a seller like you, they would go into the supplier portal that they have for their own agency. If they go in there and they find a sufficient amount of people, then they've got enough for market research and they can move on. And the last place I want to say here, that is the number one market research tool across the board that everybody has access to. So for example, the Army is not going to look into the Navy's supplier portal, or the Army is not going to look into Northrop Grumman's supplier portal. If they don't have their own supplier portal in the agency or in the large prime, they're going to move into SAM and DSBS. Together, they make up your small business profile. And I'll show you that in a minute. That is the most important thing. I'm telling you right now, there is no magic pill. There's no magic way of getting ahead. There is just the process. And I'm telling you, if you follow this, you will succeed. And I'll prove it to you in a couple seconds. Okay, I just wanted to say that buyers do not buy from the best. I get this all the time where people think that their company is the best. I'm like, you could very well be the best company out there, but the government does not buy from the best. They buy from the best they can see, right? Whoever shows up during RFI and RFQ or sources sought, whoever shows up, they see. That's who they're going to choose. Whoever writes a response to the RFP, that's who they're going to choose. So if a buyer can't see you, if they can't find you and they can't see you, how can they work with you, right? I really want you to keep that in your mind. Okay, if I had to give you a magic pill, this is it. Next time I show you this, I'm going to have these corners rounded so it looks more like a pill. And then I can say, here's your magic pill. The small business profile is made up of SAM.gov and DSBS. If you do not know these tools, they are the most fundamental to government contracting. Get to know them. You should know them better than anybody else because they're the tools that will lead to your success. And together, they can make up that magic pool. When you have your profile done completely, on the right-hand side, you can see that it will lead to all your marketing assets. And so you have a common set of messages. When a buyer looks at you across all these different marketing assets, they will see that you do what you say you do because it's common across all of them. The government buyers, when they're doing looking for a company like yours, right? These are the type of people over here that'll come looking at your small business profile. That's DSBS and SAM. And then industry partners, right? When small businesses are looking for other small businesses to team with, or larges are trying to hit their small business plans, this is a place the government has put in place, a tool the government has put in place for all of them, small businesses, large businesses, and agency buyers, for all of them to find a company like yours. So make sure that's good to go. And I'm going to talk in detail. Okay, so I'm going to go through this really fast because these are 30-minute trainings. And I've got 12 minutes left and a lot to share with you. But I just wanted to tell you overall, how does the buyer look for a company like yours? What's their process when they go to a tool like an agency portal or DSBS? In this case, I'm showing DSBS right here, your small business profile. But fundamentally, they come into this tool, right? They come into the supplier portal for the federal government. They perform a keyword search, just like SharePoint or cleaning services or cybersecurity, just like you would if you go to Google looking for something for your office, right? How can I find a copy repair person, a carpeting company, electronics, whatever it is? You're going to Google and you're pretty much going to start your research there. And so you do a keyword search, and when they get the results back, they're going to do this initial qualifying. They're going to look at the results of all these companies coming back in table format. And they're looking to see if your narrative, and I'll talk about that in a second, if your capability narrative says that you do what they just searched for. We call that search intent. Their intent was to find a company that does cybersecurity. So they search for cybersecurity. And when the profile comes up, they want to see that your narrative basically says cybersecurity. If it says we do all things IT and then cybersecurity is one word, they're going to go, well, they're probably not a cybersecurity firm. They just touch on it. Compared to if you really are a cybersecurity firm, then your narrative will just be cyber because that's what you do. So they're doing this qualifying, and I call it shortlisting, right? They've got a bunch of people and they're swiping left and right. And when they swipe left, you're off the list. And when you swipe right, you're on a short list. Same way we do with resumes when we're hiring candidates. We're left, right, left, right. We might go, do they have an MBA? Left, right, to find things like that. That's what the buyer's doing because they're not trying to look at everybody. They're trying to get a good enough list, a short list, that they can then choose vendors to do market research with. And then the last thing is they do company website, look at a lot more. I'm going to come back to that in a second in a whole different way when I describe the problem that is out there. And the reason most 8A firms, and when I say most, I mean 80%, are not maximizing the certification that you have. People like me think it's a golden ticket, and it literally is. But there are some things you have to do to make sure that it's working for you. No one's going to hand you money, but you're on you kind of got a fast pass, if you will, at Disneyland for a roller coaster where you can go to the front of the line, right? Everybody still had to pay to get in line, but this is a fast pass, a golden ticket. But if you don't pay attention to what you need to do, then you're just going to stay in line. And that's currently what's happening with 80% of the small businesses. So let's talk about the 8A problem. And I say this softly, but the thing that needs to be fixed in a week or less. Okay, so there's a lot of reasons why a buyer might shortlist you or take you off the short list. There's subliminal tickers, if you will, that they look at it. They go, I don't want to bother. It's too much work. We call that friction. You're introducing friction between you and the buyer. You want to get put on the short list. Don't do these things that introduce friction. And so the first one is saying on your small business profile that you don't accept credit cards. Everybody accepts credit cards. No one says you have to sell to the government whatever they want, but everybody accepts credit cards. All you do is take the number, give it to your bank, and they take the money from the government. That easy. But it's just a checkbox. The problem with it is it's subliminally for 2,000 companies is saying we're not ready to be able to accept money from the government because we can't accept credit cards. But you probably can, right? So go in there, turn that checkbox to yes. The next one is out of the 6,000 8A firms that are out there, 3,000 of you are using less than 10 keywords. I told you that when the government is looking for a seller like you, they're going to use keywords primarily to find what they're looking for. And in the DSBS small business profile, you have 25 keywords available to you. 3,000 firms, half of these 8A firms are not using all of the keywords. They're only using less than half. And so I want you to go in there and increase it. How can the government find you if they're searching, but you don't use keywords? So an example is cybersecurity. Maybe they go search for RMF, risk management framework. It's a type of cybersecurity thing. If you don't put RMF in, or if you don't put risk management framework in, but that's what they search on, they're not going to find you. When you use all these keywords, you have room to put cyber, risk management framework, RMF, right? So use all those keywords. 3,000 companies are not using the keywords. Next one is even worse. There's a narrative that I talk about that they look at this initial narrative. Not only is the narrative telling them, hey, this is what my company does, but it is also keywords, right? We call this field a keyword indexed field. So they index it, meaning every word in there, if the buyer searches for it, they'll find you. And so it's another place for you to put a whole bunch of keywords. But right now, 4,600 companies out of the 6,000 8A firms are using half or less of the narrative field. That means 50% more of your story could be told, and they could be finding you, buyers could be finding you if you tell that story. Then there's another narrative field, right? It's called special equipments, but it's another narrative field, and 6,000, basically no one is using this, right? There's 6,300 firms and 6,200 are not using this field halfway or more, right? And when I'm being generous when I say it's half full, because I would be willing to bet 5,000 are completely empty. Well, that's a huge chunk of space where you could be telling your story to the buyer when they're doing market research. That's a huge chunk of space where you could be putting keywords in that the buyer could find you, right? You get more and more creative about how they might be searching for a company like yours, and you get those keywords in there. You want to weave it into a narrative, but you want those keywords in there. That way, if somebody types in cybersecurity or elevators, right? There's elevators, and then there's lifts, I think is another way to call it. And there's all sorts of other terms. You could use manufacturers' names around the elevators, right? There's all sorts of ways the buyer might try to search for you. You should learn what those are and maximize these three fields: keywords, the first narrative, and the second narrative. When you do, you will massively increase the chances that buyers find you when they go looking for you. The next one is 75% of the companies out there have no past performance at all listed. What that means is the buyer shows up, they look at you and they go, oh, that looks good. And they go down to the bottom of the profile and there's no experience, but many of you have experience, whether it's federal as prime or sub, whether it's commercial or state and local, put it in. So when they come down, they go, okay, you say you do what I want you to do and you have experience doing it. I'm putting you on the short list, right? 75% have no experience. And the last one here is 5,700 have no secure website. It means HTTPS. You need to have a secure website. We've got CMMC going on. The government's really pushing this massive push on privacy. But if they come in and they see your website's not secure, they might not click on you. You might get swiped to the left and not put on the short list. And so what I like to say is, if you're the best, but buyers can't find you, are you really the best, right? If you're experienced, but no one knows that you're experienced, are you really experienced? Not to the new market researcher, yes to your customers, but not to the new market researchers. Really quickly, because I see I'm just blowing through this time, and I'm going to come back and do a bigger training offline of the lives. But go to this website. It's called GLS, General Login System. Here's the URL. You can get this later. But go in there. This is how you update your DSBS pages without having to go all the way through SAM, having your cage code renewed, all that stuff. Just go through GLS. Supplier portals, one thing I wanted to mention here is that there's 6,300, 5,700, or 6,357 8A firms in SAM, right? But only about 1,000 of them are registered in HHS. They have their own portal. So buyers in HHS don't go out. They look at this tool that they have, and it's a great tool. 4,896 8A firms are not registered in this supplier portal, right? One thing you can do to maximize your certification is make sure HHS knows about it, or the Navy or the Army or Department of Education, whoever it is. And so make sure you're getting out there. And we have a supplier portal right here, an e-directory. You can find it right on our homepage. It's free. You download it. I don't even think we ask for an email. It's at the govconchamberofcommerce.com or govconchamber.com. Go there, download it, and you'll find supplier portals. If you do the SAM and DSBS profile, when you go to these other portals, it'll take you 2 seconds because they basically ask for the exact same information. Okay, so just as a recap here, we've got, we talked a lot about maximizing your 8A certification, but the biggest thing around it is make sure people can find you. If they can't find you, they can't buy from you. So don't go anywhere else looking for any other magic pill or solution. Just go to DSBS and make sure your profile is filled out complete in there. And so you can get a GLS account to do that and ask for the supplemental pages, update SAM and DSBS as needed, and then register in the agency portals. I would register in every federal agency portal that we have. We got 12 right now, and we update it every month. And then strategically in the large primes. So if you're going after the Department of Education, you want to find what large primes are in there and then register in their portals. So hopefully that all made sense. This is such an important thing. You see those numbers. 75% of 8A firms are kind of invisible to the buyer. If you do this one thing, buyers will begin to find you. It doesn't mean they're going to buy from you immediately, but now buyers can find you and be aware of you. They can see that you're experienced somewhere else. And I really want that for you. So if you found today's training valuable, do me a favor, throw thanks into the chat. Shout out to Cecilia and to Gus, because I can't do this stuff without their help. And then make sure you visit my LinkedIn profile. Subscribe to our newsletter, because we're doing all new trainings next week. Every week we do new trainings, and the newsletter is generally how we let you know what's lined up for the next week. And we always try to come up with really tactical training that gives you steps that you can take for success. So, all right, I enjoyed it. Remember, government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is enjoying the weekend. I hope you have a great weekend. I will see you in the next training.